p.m. So I'm going to call the March 13th, 2024 meeting of the DuPage Police Records Management System Oversight Committee to order. A quorum of the members is physically present, but I will entertain a motion to permit those members not physically present due to either personal illness or disability, employment purposes, or the business of the board, family or other emergency or unexpected childcare obligations, to participate by video or teleconference. And I think we have one member.
Clara.
Okay, yeah.
So move.
We have a motion and a
Second.
second. All in favor? Good.
Thank you so much.
Okay, motion carries, and why don't we start with a roll call then?
Berlin,
Here.
Conroy.
Yes.
Rosenthal, excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yes, Conroy, yes.
Fielding,
Here.
France,
Here.
Moranowitz,
Here.
Martinovich.
Here.
McPherson.
Here.
Mendrick,
Here.
Ritz. Scalera,
Here.
Bennett, Zerwin. Here. We have one.
Okay, super. All right, on to the order of chairman's remarks. I know that there was a meeting today conducted by Axon with a number of police chiefs who were there. I was aware of it and actually encouraged any chiefs who were interested to go, because I think it's important that everyone have a complete understanding of what's out there to be able to make the most informed decision possible when that decision has to be made. And I know Jan Barbeau from my office was there today, and I think when we get to that point, we can get kind of an update, at least see where, what the temperature and where things are at. So, again,
Chair, if I may,
Sure.
Don Aaronhalf also reached out to see if we can get a demo for the entire committee itself, right? So there seems to be a lot of interest. We'd like to be involved in the process. So instead of, us not being involved, let's be involved, let's look at it together and kind of think forward. So we're gonna see if we can potentially do that sometime in the future, maybe bring them in and do it.
it's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, that's all I had in the order of chairman's remarks. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
We will public comment, then I will entertain a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Second motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. And we can go on to item 6A and B, which are discussion items. Our proposed intergovernmental agreement. And I know it's been the topic of discussion past couple of meetings, but I don't know who wants to.
Yeah, I'll
kind of
take
kick
it.
off.
with the,
Yeah.
Okay, please.
So, if you don't mind, Chair Berlin, I'm gonna take A and B together, put together a presentation, really just to help us, all right, so, really more so to help us, to help highlight the major topics and help us kind of talk through them along the way. A lot has happened over the past couple of months, from us revising the IGA internally, working through some updates and changes, and working through the new financial model, to last week when we actually hosted an informational session for village managers and chiefs, and there was a few records managers also attended that session. On screen, virtually we had 30 participants, and there were multiple people in probably some of those rooms. And then in the room, we had over 20. So minimum 50 to 60 people participated. And it was a good lively discussion. Member Feldman was there, Member Franz was there, and some others also participated in the discussion. So we took a lot from that conversation. We documented the comments, the concerns, and then we came back as a team, met with the state's attorney's office to see how we can update the IJ to address those concerns and some of the other feedback that we received. So this presentation kind of summarizes that conversation and what we recommend and what we discuss. So the purpose of these two discussion items is to kind of highlight those things, and then have the members talk through them and ask questions, concerns, and things of that nature. So, all right. So the first part here is that we just wanted to give a general feedback to all of you that we actually did not receive a lot of direct feedback other than what we received last Thursday when we presented from the entire consortium. So a lot of minor things, and these are the themes that we received from all of the members, and probably less than 10 of the members responded to our request for feedback. So minor grammatical and formatting recommendations, which we've made changes to the IGA. There's a recommendation to move the evaluation period from 2024 to move it to 2024 from 2025. And then there was one person who recommended to move it to 2026. That individual thought it made more sense to implement OCA and MFR, take a look at that. Also, give Addison a chance to implement the new application, Axon, and kind of get some feedback from that before they made a decision on upgrading and moving things forward. So that was the recommendation number 2. Number 3, there was a request to shorten the term to 1 year to give the membership time, I guess, to assess again other products to decide on whether they want to stay with the consortium or not. And then the last item was request to increase accountability to the vendors for contract deliverables, which we absolutely will do with whatever contract we have moving forward. So if we decide to stick with Hexagon moving forward, we'll add penalties in there, milestones, things to hold them more accountable to make sure we hit those big targets during implementation and operational activities in the future. So we got that. So this is the general feedback. So we have talked through some of that feedback, and we wanted to bounce off our recommendations with you and get your input on our thoughts. So number 1, we believe we should shorten the agreement. We don't believe that a 1-year term makes sense. And the reason why we don't think it makes sense is because the entire consortium agreed to the Hexagon restatement agreement in 2022, which takes us to 2027, right? We are financially obligated under that agreement. So our recommendation is to shorten it from a 4-year renewal to a 3-year renewal to coincide with the Hexagon contract. So that's the first thing. So we'll extend it to June 30th, 2027, when the Hexagon agreement concludes, the current agreement concludes. The second item is move mid-year contract evaluation process. So we thought through that and we talked through that a lot. We do not recommend that. And the reason why we don't recommend that is mainly because we need time to evaluate the product. We need time to implement it and work through. So moving the process up doesn't really help us from our perspective. But we're open to ideas. If you guys really believe that 2024 is the right time for us to start the evaluation process, we're fine with it. But our initial recommendation was that 2025 was probably the right target considering the things that we're working on right now. But we're open to your feedback and whether you'd like for us to move it to 2024. There are some benefits to moving it to 2024. And then the third recommendation we have is to expedite the implementation of OCR. The recommendation from the group last week was to expedite the implementation of OCR 10 and MFR. And again, we don't believe that's the right thing to do, and mainly because we need time to plan and execute. We also need to decide on the evaluation process. If we do the evaluation process, then that may have a direct impact on the OCR 10 and MFR upgrade.
Okay,
Member
okay.
Francis, yes,
A quick question. So what is the recommended time frame for the upgrade to the OCR 10? That,
To
that to
leave
start
it-
this year?
Yes, it started already.
It started
We
already,
already
okay.
started, and to continue on the current track, which will have us implementing mid-year and 2025 next year.
Next year. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then the last recommendation, and then I'm gonna take a pause. I'd like to hear from the chair, if that's okay,
Please.
the members on all of these points. The exit language that we suggest, so we strongly suggest that there are no options to leave before 2027 due to financial obligations. Again, in 2022, this committee agreed to move forward with the Hexagon restatement contract. We're financially obligated through 2027. So we should stick with that. And then moving forward, we will give members an opportunity to leave the consortium if they would like to do that. But we require a 1-year notice in June of 2026. That allows us to basically make adjustments, plan, and it won't have a negative impact on the rest of the members of the consortium, right? If you leave, no penalty, that's fine. We just need notice. We can then make an adjustment to the contract. We can even make an adjustment to our support model, personnel if necessary, so that there isn't any negative financial impact on the county or to on any of the members of the consortium. So 4 big recommendations we'd like to have your feedback and your thoughts on.
Just one more question to
Please.
clarify. So if we agree to the required 1-year notice in June of 2026, then the evaluation process is gonna have to conclude a couple months before that deadline.
And it would.
And it would.
And it would.
Okay.
So the thought is to start if you all don't want us to move it up a year, it's moving it to 2024 is still an option. But if we stick with our current schedule, which is for us to do it in March of 2025, we'll be done by, say, the summer or early fall of 2025. So the group would know whether we're gonna stick with Hexagon or if we're gonna go with a different application and what that application would be.
Member Fielder.
Thank you. First, I want to start off by a big thank you to Anthony and Don. The work that's been put in here is phenomenal. The informational meeting was so incredibly helpful. And I know there's a lot of moving parts and I really appreciate the work that everybody's done. I think when this proposed IGA amendment came to our attention, it was prompted by things like billing practices and audit costs and Addison leaving and things like that. I think what's happened is because we've had such a meaningful and robust discussion of issues, it's shown us that there are some pretty significant issues on the table in terms of alternatives that may be available to current members. Because of that, I think it's imperative that this group continue to work in a way that drives the, I think you call them key purposes or I'll call them desired outcomes, right? The idea that if we all work together, we can get the best possible product for the lowest possible cost and drive down risk and try to minimize risk. I think where we find ourselves right now is, let me back up. First thing I think we should do is slow down. By my read of the current IGA, it actually expires in April of 25, not April of 24, because I think the automatic renewal clause in section 7 point whatever already kicked in because people didn't give notice, municipalities didn't give notice in November, right? So I think we have an opportunity to slow down. I don't think it expires in April of 24. And I think we should use that time to really look hard at what Anthony was saying about, let's look at the alternatives. Let's make sure that we understand what's out there. One of my concerns is, I think it's a very real possibility that more than a few current members leave the consortium at this transition point. And if that happens, because the system costs are fixed and we're just talking about how they're spread going forward, the financial impacts to the remaining municipalities could be huge. Could be very large. I think we might even want to start looking at, I think we should look at the other products. I really appreciate you saying we should take a look at that demo. But we might actually want to start thinking about, are there ways we could change systems prior to the Hexagon contract expiration? And perhaps those financial impacts could actually be less or lessened, like creative uses of like the equipment replacement fund as part of a buyout. I don't know. I'm just throwing out these ideas and speaking candidly, because I'm very concerned that even if we have 3, 4, or 5 agencies leave, the financial impact to the rest of them could be significant. Yeah, that's it. So I just want to make sure we're looking everywhere. We at Downers haven't given our comments yet. We thought the deadline for comments was Friday, so we're still working.
It is, you're right.
All right,
It is,
so
you're right.
we're working on that. But that's, so much has changed. I'm so glad we're having these conversations, but I do think we should slow down, take a look at other options and start to look at maybe ways to protect the financial risk to anybody left in the consortium. I think it's a pretty real risk that cost to each agencies could be going up tremendously during this window.
Only because I don't
Yes.
know, so if you'll pardon my indulgence here. Anthony, have we had any discussions with the sheriff's office moving? Because we've had obviously considerable relationships with Axon. And I know that we have less than pleasant experiences with Hexagon. I know, and to your point, if that was something that we were to opt to do, that would certainly drive up everybody's prices, being the largest user share of that. Is that something that's been, is that Under Sheriff Moore made any mention about that or anything?
He has
Is that
not,
okay?
no,
Okay.
he has not mentioned that at all. This is the first I've heard of that.
That's a conversation I'm probably gonna have with him too, so you know, Bob, because we've put so much money into Axon and evidence.com and everything else. And we're not overly thrilled with the Hexagon product. So it might actually make sense for us to consider that as well.
Yeah. The only rebuttal I want to say to that, and it's not really a rebuttal to you, it's a comment in general that, again, I just want to remind all of the members, you guys know this, but it's a dead horse and I'll continue to be. Consortium is what's important. It's not the product. Consortium is what's important. It's absolutely not the product.
Oh, and I understand.
So, yeah, right. So.
That's critical.
Yep,
Really
that's
is.
critical. So if guys, we're not married to Hexagon, if you guys decide as consortium that you want to move to Axon or some other product that we evaluated and it makes more sense as the group to move to, we're here to support you. That's the whole purpose of PRMS. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump over and come back to
Please.
Addison.
Right.
But I'm gonna move to the last slide because I think it's relevant right now. And it's easy for me to see, but it may not be easy for you all to see up there right now. But, because we don't know a lot about Axon, and I realize why law enforcement likes it. It makes a lot of sense because there are applications and tools and equipment that you guys use that's very relevant, but you don't use their records management system. They're actually relatively new in that space, right? So just keep that in mind, right? You're going from basically, if we move over Hexagon, from a 30, 40-year-old system that is built for DuPage County. Customizations, everything is built to DuPage County, to now a new solution that isn't built to DuPage County, and they'll take some tweaking and changing to get there. Because we have not had a direct audience with Axon, but we are requesting it because we like to get involved. We've made some assumptions based on research we did of their records management system. And this comparisons chart just really shows the difference between what the consortium gets right now with Hexagon versus what individual agencies would get just if they went with Hexagon. So Axon. So the first two are just what you get with records management system. So record storage, management, retrieval, incident tracking, and reporting. It's what record management systems do in general. So you get that both with Axon and with Hexagon. all software support, you get technical support and software maintenance. So that's all automatically included. Starting with line number 3 is when we start to deviate from the Axon difference, right? So currently, all of the Hexagon products are integrated. So CAD, MPS, FBR, OCR, and OCA. Plus, we have integrations with the clerk of circuit court through IUCS, LiveScan, NIBRS, and the state of Illinois through LEADS. You don't have that. You won't have that with Axon. You'd have to build those integrations that will go away. The fourth item, which I think is the most important, the consortium collaboration energy that we have. So that includes data sharing, GIS mapping, trend analysis, cross-agency knowledge sharing, and collective action like NIBRS, being able to certify in the state together. You lose all of that, but that's included in Hexagon. There's also a dedicated incident troubleshooter, subject matter expert, and escalation point, the RSA. We've used them several times to address major issues with the product, or when the state made changes, we were able to use the RSA to quickly escalate things to Hexagon to get things fixed fast. That goes away. Maybe Axon or other software providers provide something similar. I'm sure they provide it at a cost. And then,
That's, the RSA is provided through the ETSP to assist with the CAD, correct? Hexagon, to assist with Hexagon
It's a shared contract. We split the cost.
with,
ETSP, so,
with PRMS, yeah,
right, so it's 50-50 right now.
it's 50-50. So, half.
Dan?
Yes, ma'am.
sorry,
Would it be fair, I'm sorry, were you done, Mark?
yes, it was, thank you.
Would it be fair to say that this is unknown as opposed to not applicable? Because I don't know.
Yeah, it's unknown, yeah.
I just don't think that's a fair comparison, say they're not applicable because we don't know. I think it would be better to say that it's unknown if Axon can do this, or if another company can do this, because I know Axon, just from the solutions we have, already has some of those other things that can be tagged into those report writing systems and into evidence.com. So I think there is some stuff that is actually more just on the unknown side because we haven't spoken to them. So I just don't think it's fair to represent it as not applicable.
I'll change it, and you're absolutely right. It's unknown. I said that at the very beginning, right? Because we haven't
Just part of
had,
the record, that's all, I just want to make sure.
not a problem. Yeah, we have not, this is not an official assessment. An official assessment is what's needed, and that's a very thorough assessment to really look at each and every requirement of the consortium, and then compare that to functionality of both Hexagon and any future application that's out there. So you're absolutely right.
It is, and we would spell that out as we do an RFI, RFP,
Yeah.
something like, right, that's
Yeah,
at the time where we as. the
We have
committee
two
would make
options
sure-
as a consortium. We can do an RFI, which allows us to really just gather as much information as possible without going out for an official RFP, or making a selection at that time, or we can do the RFP. It's completely up to this consortium. I think we're going to talk about it later and have a special call and decide on which option makes the most sense. But yes.
Thank you.
I think unknown is the better term, but
It is.
we also need to realize that it's likely additional costs. And I think that's the point that we need to make sure when we're doing an apples comparison, kind of on the fly like we're doing, are we really seeing a comparison that's,
Well, I agree, but when we brought in Hexagon, it was the same thing. It was
yes,
it's
it
just
was,
like when we brought in that RMS with Motorola, that's an enhancement, which we all know meant more money.
but then we paid
True.
more. Yeah,
That
okay.
is.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, and the whole point, Dan and Mark, is that I'm just pointing out the differences because we've talked about it as a group before, and I wanted to make sure that we highlighted and people were fully aware, right? It's not apples to apples right now.
No, you
John,
understand.
do
We'll be
you
back
wanna-
next time, don't worry.
You want to say
If I may
something, please?
briefly speak to that, I think unknown is probably a better term, but the subtext of this not applicable is that we know that we have it now. It is a guaranteed thing that we have at this moment.
Sure, but
And
it
so
says
going to any
comparison.
other system, it is an unknown.
Sure, but it says comparison, so unknown is better than not applicable.
Correct. So I agree with you. I'll update and make sure that I change that. The fifth or sixth thing, sixth thing, additional technology resources that included SMEs and all technology areas, tools and other apps. So Right now, we take advantage of Zendesk, which is our service desk incident tracking system that's paid for by county government. We could charge PRMS. We do not do that. We just incorporate that into our overall support model. We also use money.com, which is the communication. It's a project management tool that's also used for communication out. It's been very effective over the past year and a half that we've used it. Again, county government covers that. There are other apps that we use and other resources. We have subject matter experts that all support PRMS because they're all one big team, right? You lose that when we, not if we keep the consortium, that stays. But if we, if you do individual standalone applications, you lose that. I want to make sure that's clear. So no matter what product we use, you keep that as a consortium. Shared investment in software infrastructure. Right now, we share infrastructure with CAD and that helps split the cost, right? So if you have to do it yourselves individually, you have to pay for hardware individually for your municipality, or if multiple municipalities did it, you still have to take on that full cost. Access to archival data of all agencies, I think that's big. So right now, you have the ability to take data, look at trends, do trending for the future across all DuPage County agencies that are connected. When you disconnect, you're on your own. So you don't have access to all of that data. And then last but not least, access to other modules, and I'm sure Axon has additional modules too, but we do know through, and this was recently, we found out through Hexagon, we have access to crash reporting and a citation module, which there are other chiefs who'd like to look at those different modules that come free with what we already have. It's already included. So we can take advantage of that and potentially save money there as a consortium if we stay with Hexagon. But the big thing there, excuse me, I wanted to do was just highlight what we see are differences that we really don't talk about. We always talk about Axon versus Hexagon, but we should talk about consortium. What's included in the consortium versus a standalone application is really the right conversation to have. All right, I'm gonna run back to any more thoughts or questions on this particular slide about our recommendations. Do you agree with any of these four? Because we'd like to get some kind of consensus from you guys moving forward on what we should do.
I think Jan wants to
Okay.
just fill us in because she was at the presentation today. Jan, please.
Just my takeaway from today's meeting, and I was at the meeting last week as well, was that there is, I'd say, a significant amount of interest in looking at Axon further. I don't sense that there's a concern about the consortium. People like coming together and having shared resources. I think the movement is away from Hexagon, and Axon has a nice platform. It's the same evidence.com interface that you have now. So people are already comfortable with it. It's just like a new portion of that module. There are some nice interfaces that are there that are built, is what I was told. They have NIBRS for Illinois. They have an integration with IUCS. I think there's some other ones. I think for our office, one of the things is like the shared police reports that would exist the same as it does with the body cams, which is a enhancement. They like that it's a cloud-based instead of having an on-premise solution. So you don't have to wait for the next version. It's a, once you install it, there's a one-time fee to go live with it. But then modifications or updates are just part of that system. It's not like, oh, in 2 years, we're going to have a new build that's being deployed. So that's desirable. There were, I think, 10, 11 agencies there today. Some, overall, everybody's just looking for information. Everybody's trying to make a decision about what to do. There was a discussion about extending the current IGA for a year. And they were talking about instead of signing the new IGA, let's extend this for 1 year They're looking for them, being Axon is looking for like in 60 days. If we had like 8 agencies that were interested in going live, they gave some rough numbers, like if it was a single agency versus, more than that, the price would vary. But basically, I think it was like $300,000 to $700,000 per agency as a one-time cost that you pay after you go live. And it would basically take the Addison model, roll that out, and then you pay when you're live. They think they can have it, Addison says, up by July, and that they could duplicate that out for everybody else by end of April next year. Any questions?
They mentioned if they had anything in place for like everybody who's already got evidence.com, would that be an easier rollout for them?
Yes.
Would that be an easier evidence solution for you for sharing? If we were at, if we had, from a tech share standpoint, if we were all using evidence.com, like, we'll just use DuPage. If we were using that for our body cams, for our fleet, which we've all switched to fleet now, and if we were using that, it would all be essentially housed in one place. Would that be something easier from the state's attorney's office perspective as well?
We already have that.
But I mean, if you're pulling from, so we wouldn't have to pull from 3, 4 different, we wouldn't have to pull from Hexagon and WatchGuard and from evidence.com to get everything into TechShare for you. You could just have your account on evidence.com and pull it off.
Well, our texture prosecution is a completely different subject. So we have a integration now with Axon Evidence. So I did ask about that workflow because discovery is a challenge now, that we don't always get the supplemental information that we have because it's a separate process. So we have a charged case. You send us everything, whether it's through the texture portal or through Axon. And then we have that information. But 2 weeks from now, you have a new suspect and a new supplement and whatever new information you have. We're not consistently getting that information. So it's like subsequent requests for it. So with the Axon records, it would work the same as if the Axon case. Are you familiar with it? Where it's like, oh, I have a new item. It says, hey, you've already sent this to the state's attorney, and it's just automatically shared with us. There's some other, I just feel like we need to spend more time reviewing everything.
There's one last question. I think Leeds was brought up on that slide too. They have, Axon has an ALPR system built into Fleet. Would that translate into their record system too?
I don't know, Leeds was not specifically discussed. They did say that everybody likes the Hexagon CAD, as far as I can tell, and the MPS. So what was presented was maintain the Hexagon CAD and MPS. And then this is strictly just the records portion. They don't have a integration with LiveScan right now. And Addison said they didn't ask for it, but of course that would be an additional cost. They have some other nice features like the dictation, like you can dictate your report instead of having to type it, and you can even take it from your and
I've never even seen their program, this part of their program. I know everything else, so it's just kind of interesting. That's all.
well, and honestly, most of the discussion was about the IGA and whatnot. They were just doing the demo when I left, so I didn't even see the full demo. So I personally would like to see the full demo on it. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have a question about, you said there's no ongoing cost.
No, it's a one-time implementation cost that for go live. And then I believe it's a subscription per user cost after that.
Did they outline what the per user cost was?
They did, but honestly, I was a little confused about it because they have something called standard, which I think is your, maybe, like your, if there's a officer involved shooting or use of force or something like that. So there was different costs for different pieces of the puzzle. For just the records part, I don't know. Any other? Hope that was helpful.
Thank
That
you.
was-
Yeah, thank you very much. Member Fieldman.
Thank you so much. So I think what we just heard bolsters the comments I made when we first started talking about these comments. I agree, the consortium, the value is in working together to make sure we get the best product at the lowest possible cost with the lowest amount of risk. That's clear. I still think we should slow down on this proposed IGA amendment that we have in front of us right now and continue to look at not only this Axon option potentially, but maybe other options too. And the reason is it's because I agree with you, people and agencies want to work together to get the best service at the lowest price. Just taking this all in now, it looks like there's a 60-day window where another company is trying to see if there's an opportunity for a cooperative, a consortium, to help drive down their costs to get what they think may be a competitive product. And what we just heard is they're saying it may be operational by the end of the first 1-year automatic renewal period that's in the current IGA. So this is why I think it's very real that by the end of this first 1-year renewal period that's in our current agreement, we could have a significant number of municipalities leave, which could have significant negative financial impacts on the rest of this consortium. So because of that, I think it just furthers my concern, like, can we take a long, hard look at this and before we jump into staying on the original schedule for this IGA amendment? It sounds like some municipalities may leave. Or could leave.
Yeah,
Well, one is leaving.
yeah, one is definitely legal. I definitely hear you, Member Philman, and agree with a lot of what you said. My biggest concern is that we cannot walk away from our financial obligations, right?
Understood.
This consortium agreed to stick with Hexagon through 2027. So even if we renew for 1 year, we're gonna have to stick with that financial obligation and figure out how to pay that through 2027. Now, I love your idea about, let's see what we can look at to see what we can do to bring out costs even now. And definitely for the future, right? But even now, let's take a quick look under the hood, see if we can do something to bring costs down or to bring them in check. Maybe even look at the equipment replacement component and adjust it. Maybe when we first created that, I wasn't here, so I can't speak to it, but maybe the projection has changed, right? Maybe that number can be adjusted, right, to help the membership out. But whatever we agree to, we have to think about it from the perspective of the financial obligation. If we didn't agree to the obligation with Hexagon, it's a different conversation, but we did agree to it. We're under legal obligation to stick with it. We haven't talked about penalties, so we haven't gotten to it yet. I don't believe that if a existing member wants to leave a year prior to 2027, there should be no penalties at all because you're living up to your financial obligations. But if you leave prior to, we have to recoup that money that we are obligated to pay. So that will be your financial penalty. So just want to throw that out there. And I mean, again, it's not my call, it's the membership's call to say what you guys would like to do, but we cannot forget about the financial part of it.
What does the contract say about leaving early?
I was just gonna ask that.
We have to look at, I don't have it.
I think we got a couple of contract questions. First is Dave interpreting it correctly? Do we have an automatic renewal?
Right.
Are you saying it's automatic renewal because you gotta give 1 year notice? So then.
The initial term of this agreement shall be from the effective date until April 30th, 2024. Thereafter, the agreement shall renew for successive 1-year terms commencing on May 1, unless a party terminates the agreement as set forth below, which says the party may terminate this agreement for any reason by notifying the other party in writing prior to November 1 in the year immediately preceding the renewal. Okay, so yeah, I think
Yeah, I think
it
we.
just extended already.
Well, that's the language in the Hexagon contract.
What's that?
No, that's
IGA.
This is our-
Right.
right. You can call this consortium agreement, right? The IGA.
So if I can continue, so that's question one, just to clarify that. I'm gonna forget my questions now. Question two is by the act of this committee, by renewing the contract, have we made the decision for each member that we're financially obligated to this? And if so, what's our liability on this? To Anthony's point, when we committed, are we gonna force members to stay in because we've committed to this? I don't know. So that's question two. Question three is, I think we're all obligated to the same purchasing policy whereby we shouldn't necessarily just run an Axon. We should do an RFI or an RFP and go through a formal process. Now, maybe Axon is the best option, maybe Hexagon's still the best option, but maybe there's a third company that's out there. So we need time to do that. We gotta figure out how best to do that. Dave, I completely agree with you that the consortium is the strength we have. We want to stay together. So now it's really just trying to figure out what the path is to allow that to play out.
Yeah, just to talk about the elephant in the room, Addison's, I will say Anthony and his team you guys have been outstanding. When we wrote that letter well over a year ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago, excuse me, in October, whatever year it was, 2022? Was it 2021?
Yeah.
So I remember you drafted that letter. So I do agree, being on both sides of it, you get, and I can't speak for everyone, I'm speaking for us. When you spoke earlier, ma'am, you said CAD, it's an awesome system, right? I think a lot of your dispatch will say, this is great. I think a lot of people knew from the beginning, I don't know if some of those people are still around, that this was not the best idea from an RMS. So they, maybe, I'm speaking for Addison here solely. You know, you could nitpick certain things that weren't working right. You know, the NIBRs, we were still doing a manual entry on NIBRs because it still doesn't do effectively what we want to do, even though Hexagon will tell you it does. We do a manual entry. So when we reach out to Axon, and to Mark's point, I don't know if Axon is the best fit for us, but is there a third one out there that your police chiefs and everyone would want to work together? Because yeah, they will work together, as you said. And I just want to clear the air too. I didn't want Addison to go rogue within the county to be like, oh, we're having this Axon thing, please come on in. And I owe you formally an apology if you weren't invited to that, because you should have been. So please accept that. But I wanted to make sure, Chair, you were okay with it. And so I'm glad you led with that, because Axon, for us, they're saying that they can't pull Hexagon CAD from the incident reports. They said they can't do that. They're working on CAD info to populate into RMS. It seems like there is an interface for leads. And again, this is what they're telling us. Operationally, it looks like it will be better for us, and financially, from a fiduciary responsibility, it's significantly cheaper. And so we have been asked that question among some of your police chiefs. And unfortunately, they hear the number that has been given to us, but it's a skewed number too, because let's face it, we're all wearing body cameras too, and everyone's got to comply by January 2025. Some of us are already there. You have evidence. So you have this total package. There is a negative to Axon. You're married to them. I know I am married to Axon from a body camera standpoint, to a taser standpoint, to an evidence.com standpoint. Now I'm going in with RMS. But the pay and I saw something similar. I wasn't there today, but I've seen other things in it. It is quite attractive. And so when your police chiefs have certain frustrations of Hexagon and they see something that might be easier, you know, they're gonna be attracted to it. They're gonna look at it a little bit more, and because they're already so in with Axon, right? But from what and can they overpromise? Yeah, they might be overpromising. You know, oh, you have to go live with them, and then we'll see in a month what's going to happen. And there was a risk involved that we're taking, but I do like the leap of faith to say, hey, you know, we're not alone. I think Naperville never came on in the first place, right? Not to throw Naperville under the bus, but they didn't go on, and now Addison is saying, hey, we just don't like the product. But I do like the effort that everyone's put in. To your team, what everyone's done, it's been fantastic. Well, let's take the lead, and I like how other people are at least exploring to see what's there, and if that might be a fix, don't know if it is, that might be a fix for it, great. But your problem is us, not yours. Our problem is people are saying, man, I gotta sign this IGA, and I'm on the hook till 2027, and you make a very solid point. Well, financially, we are on the hook. What happens then? Everyone else's numbers go up. What's gonna happen? But people are, I think there's a, hey, we need to hit the pause button and hit the brakes, because I don't want to sign this, because if I do, I'm now totally completely in for the next 4 years with a product that I don't like, that's not working for us, and I'm frustrated. Why would I sign up for that? So I think that's what you're hearing throughout the, at least that's what I'm hearing. That's name specific names. But and they're saying, how did you do that? And okay, we went back 2 years ago and we did this. So, I apologize for the dissertation and for the stress that we've caused to you.
But everyone did approve the extension of the contract to 2027.
So you're on the
Let's talk
hook.
about the IGA.
Yeah.
And we have to look and see what is the clause to get out. I don't know. So I haven't looked at it.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone knows.
Get out of
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
On our list to do.
I'm sorry, Chairman, can I
Please.
just comment real
Go,
quick?
please.
Joe, I agreed with, virtually everything you said, just a couple clarifications. One is, it's not 4 years. If this contract automatically renews a year, we're talking about 2 years, from 25 to 27, correct?
Correct.
So it's
Okay.
2 additional years. Also, not to, Addison pulled out. It took you guys a couple years to get to where you are now, and you're not quite there yet. So I think we gotta be realistic that this is gonna be a longer process than what any vendor is gonna promise you, in my opinion. And you're leaving some money on the table. Whatever you put in as terms of replacement, that money is staying. So I hope that was incorporated in your decision-making, because every community needs to be making sure that that's a known cost of this.
We didn't want to pay double amounts, so there was a little lag time with Axon. Why would we go 2 years out and say, start building
Yeah,
up
that
when we
makes
know
sense.
we're in? So hold on, we put them on pause and say, keep on going, but that's what we did.
Yeah, and something else to consider is, they're building this, right? It's not ready.
No.
So they're saying it's going to do all these things. And we don't know, right?
Right.
Because as we've all experienced with Hexagon,
Doesn't always work.
It really doesn't. right, it doesn't always, and, does anyone know, does Axon have other jurisdictions
You know,
where,
I cannot answer that here. I believe the answer is yes, but I cannot formally say yes. Roy Selvig, our chief's been all in with it. He's been our project lead, so.
My anecdotal comment, and I should verify this before I keep saying it publicly, but Fort Lauderdale went with Axon, and I was pulling out of Axon, is what I was told. So,
I think the point of that is, we do need to slow down.
yes.
As Member Fieldman said, there's, we need to have as much information as possible. And I can't stress it enough, it's already been said, but we have to act as a consortium. That's what we've always done in this county. That's what makes DuPage so special. That's why our law enforcement is so strong here. So we gotta move as a team. Or whatever we do, it has to be as a team. It's really important.
I was gonna make this comment later, but I also concerned, haven't agreed with everything the county does, and I'm sure the county hasn't agreed with everything I say, but I do think that the county shows a lot of leadership when you go into an intergovernmental agreement the size of this magnitude. And I would hate to think this thing unravels, and then who at the county is gonna suggest an intergovernmental cooperation with us again? So I think we got an opportunity here to do this the right way. And again, slowing down is part of that solution, but I don't wanna negatively impact the county's willingness to work with us in the future.
God's got something.
Don?
I'm sorry to keep interjecting from the sidelines here, but, the implementation timeline of something like the new RMS is 2 to 3 years. So I think it's worth recognizing that even if everybody decided to throw in the hat today and then move over to another RMS, that's gonna align with the end of the contract anyway.
Yes, the 1 year extension that Member Feldman mentioned earlier, I've not seen that happen. 27 years of being in IT, it doesn't happen that fast. But it probably depends on the size of the agency, things of that nature, but I've never seen that kind of implementation happen that fast.
If it's okay, I just want to clarify, I share everybody's skepticism about speed of implementing new systems. I just heard that it sounded to me like a vendor said they could be up and running within that. I have no opinion on whether that's true or not, and I have implemented enough systems to know that you gotta be real careful with that, so I
I think
absolutely.
that's what was represented.
Did I also hear a buy-in cost between 300 and 700,000?
Yes,
That's what Jana.
which can be very expensive.
So on the
times
county
30.
side, you guys are our biggest users.
Not us.
So.
You'd be the seventh.
Sure. You'd be 700,000.
You would be the three.
Or higher.
It's a rounding error.
There's something else we have to consider too, is
That's all.
I think everyone who's talking about Axon or something else likes the CAD part of Hexagon. And, we gotta look at the contract to see how it's structured.
No, we don't. Because ETSB, so the design of the 911 system is CAD. So that is completely separate from this and really up to, that's the decision of the PSAP directors. So that's really CAD is, because CAD is really in dispatch. So that portion, that CAD is a term we use, what the officers are talking about is their MPS and their mobile. So that portion could stay with CAD, but you could pick something different if you wanted to. It's the RMS piece. There's an RMS piece to their mobile unit, which is separate also. So there's several different things happening there. So sometimes we get a little bit confused. So they could change out their RMS piece on their mobile, but the CAD portion would be on the ETSB side, whether or not they want to go to bid. So there's that portion of the contract, but that could be unaffected by this.
We did talk about that this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did talk
Okay,
about it
so
this morning.
It is something we gotta keep it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there are some efficiencies to going together, but if the PSAP directors are satisfied with where they're at, there would be no change. I mean, they could go out to bid just from a cost perspective, but
And we're gonna be able to see that in real time as Addison makes this transition too.
We'll be your guinea pig. And seriously, I mean, the county should look at us and other people should look at us of, yeah, sure, what's good, but what's bad too, right? And I will give open feedback to you as a.
You always do, Joe. I appreciate
I
that.
try.
David.
Go ahead, sir.
So it sounds to me like just putting all this together, perhaps the idea that we hold off on the IGA amendment that's in front of us for about a 60-day period while we use that time frame to get a better understanding of the existing Hexagon contract terms, an interpretation of the existing IGA section 702 and 703 as it relates to expiration and automatic renewals. And also take a look at other options and to Mark's point, process and schedule about evaluating other options.
I agree. But I do think, Dave, we might come back to the same point of having to extend the IGA to give us time to go through this. And then the
Understood.
whole chicken or the egg thing of towns are gonna wanna pull out because they don't wanna commit, but then we're already committed and we're kind of talking circles here.
Where we find ourselves, I think what's one of the challenging facts is that there's a misalignment between the Hexagon contract termination date and the IGA renewal that was just not anticipated. But here we are. One of the things we do really well is we deal well with challenging facts and we figure it out. This is how we do it.
Identifying the problem, we can do that.
Right, we do it. So, maybe in this 60-day period, we won't know much more, but I'm hopeful that we will know enough more to figure out, one thing that can become clear in that 60-day period is the agencies that are considering going to Axon, that's the period they had initially thrown out as whether, so maybe we'll know a little bit more about that at least.
These things. I agree. I think 60 days makes sense. We will look at the contract so we can answer those questions. And also, just to make sure that, we're correct about the automatic 1-year extension.
Yeah, that's not the case. We're gonna have to have a couple of meetings here real quick
Yeah.
like that.
Couple, if I may,
No,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
first, yes, we'll review the contract soon, and if something comes up, we'll talk about a special call quite quickly to address it. We'll deal with that first. We'll talk, but, I wanna touch base. Member Franz, to your point, I think the county would agree with you. We want to continue to work with everybody. We would like to stay a consortium. I, by all means, fully agree with you, and my county counterparts, I think, would all concur with my statement on that. So we fully agree. Member Feldman's point at the beginning of why this IGA came forward, the extension at least, it was due to it was the financial portion. You're right. It was the fact that we're currently using ETSB funds to front it. And with law change, we determined, or this is where I'll look at the state's attorney's office and correct me if I say this incorrectly. We've determined there's a possibility of a problem using that money initially, even though we're reimbursing it because it's dedicated 911 funds, which is not RMS. So that's where the impetus came in, as well as the county's budget's been fronting it. So that was where I can tell you the main basis this came from was just a matter of how it was being paid for and timing of it. Now, as we've done this, oh, yes,
Just to
yes, yes.
clarify too, we keep talking about the IGA amendment or renewal. This was
Sure.
actually, we were redeveloping the IGA
Correct.
entirely to get rid of some of what doesn't apply any longer. So
Correct.
that's where you're trying to get
Correct.
everything. But I think a lot of the confusion does come in.
Funny.
It would help to have them aligned. Well, the
Yep.
financial and to have Hexagon and the IGA aligned, because that is,
Correct. And that's where now we've come to where we are with everything else. So I agree with you. I just wanted to say that's where the beginning of this all happened. And then now here we are today and we've realized, well, here's all things we'd like to fix. So it's great that we're having this conversation and this dialogue's key. And I agree with you. You know, we take challenges and we make the best of them because it's DuPage County and all of our municipalities and us, we lead in the state. So it's fantastic that we all do this. And I can speak to that. We want to continue doing that with everybody by all means. So I think that's spot on.
Okay, so I think that addresses, for the most part, 6A, proposed IGA. Joe brought it up, member Morano brought it up, so let's talk about the Addison separation piece, and this is the first time member Morano you're hearing about this, so you know, I want to apologize for us not communicating this to you directly before the entire committee, but these are some of the things that we're recommending for Addison. Let me just say that we, number one, appreciate Addison for giving us notice and following the process. You absolutely did that. So because of that, you followed the process. We're working with you to kind of move things forward. We consider that to be a separate process than what's happening moving forward, right? So a couple things. We heard last Thursday during the info session, why is Addison getting all of these privileges? Why do they get a special contract? And the answer is Addison does not have a special agreement. So they gave us notice that they were leaving. So now we're just working on an exit agreement with them, which will be made available. Sorry, this thing keeps changing. It has some automation into it. Addison, we're working on the exit agreement, which that exit agreement will be made available to all agencies after we complete our financial obligation, right? So other agencies will be able to exit as well, and there will be terms very similar to Addison's that they will follow. But we are under that financial obligation. Addison gave us notice before the restatement was actually signed, so. Also, Addison, I just covered that adhere to the IG exit procedure, notified us, the Oversight Committee prior to in 2021, the actual restatement was in 2022. Quarterly agreement where full payments are required for full services is what we're recommending. Trying to do a month-to-month moving forward doesn't make sense. We don't want to cut you guys off right away, but a quarterly agreement that we re-up quarter. So is what we're recommending moving forward. So start right after April. If we all decide, we may decide something different, but if we go with the current timeline, you get 3 months. If you guys aren't ready in July, then you have to re-up for another 3 months, right? You're obligated to pay your full share of FY22 contract increase. So let's talk about that. In 2022, after the restatement was signed, we were supposed to charge additional costs to all agencies. We did not do that, right? So there's a cost to that the rest of the agencies will pay moving forward, but we think that Addison should also pay for that up until when you leave the agreement.
Just a
Consortium.
quick, so then every other agency would have to pay whatever their increase was back to fiscal year 2022.
They're already doing
They're
that.
already doing it.
It's already built into it, and they're to pay to throughout the end, if they stay in.
It's just spread out over a longer. period
It's
of
spread
time.
out for a longer period of time. Since you're leaving, you just,
Gotta pay it.
yep.
Yep.
Okay. And then all termination of services, and termination of services, we agree to provide a data dump. We're gonna make sure we get you your records. But if you require something more extensive, you guys just have to bear the cost. The consortium cannot pay for that cost of an integration or anything extensive. So I want to take a pause and get the feedback from membership on those.
Procedurally, does this agreement require this committee's vote and approval?
Have to look at state attorney's office.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Got it.
Thank you.
That's why we're having the discussion today,
Yeah.
just to get some parameters.
And if I may for 1 second, with the initial contract, and Member Feldman, thank you for bringing up that section, because now I've reread it to this point. Obviously, with them getting notice, the initial term does on April 30th of 24. So that would be, Addison's out because they gave the appropriate notice, nobody else did. That's where we would need to do a special call of some nature to approve whatever this exit is, so they're not cut off April 30th if they need access and whatnot. So I would say that would be something we need to consider as a group, or Lisa.
No,
do
I
you have-
agree with the special call. And the other reason too, if we do decide that we want to do an RFI, RFP, like something sooner, it would, maybe the calendaring and the timing would be, that would be a good thing to discuss at that special call.
Then we have a number of things we'll be talking about over the next.
Yes.
Correct. So if, and Mr. Berlin, if correct me if this is not the intent, would be based off of recommendations today, staff would outline an agreement of such. We'll work with Addison, obviously, with based off the parameters this committee is determined, and then we can come back for that approval of the agreement before April.
Right.
And then we can come back also with. the
With
discussion
whatever
of
else we
personnel
have,
and-
yeah.
Right, in 60 days.
The goal was to do a
Actually,
special call on
we'd have to do it
March
before-
27th.
Oh, yeah.
7th, it was the
Because-
thought,
That's right.
based on what the outcome of this conversation for Addison and to talk about next steps.
Maybe let's push it. We do.
The first week of April, are you thinking?
Yeah, just so that will.
Yeah, that, I have no problem with that if.
No problem, stay at all.
If I could.
Chairman.
Chair.
Yes,
Um,
please. I'm sorry.
So thank you for this. I know you're looking for general feedback and parameters and general direction. I think that works really well in a normal situation, but I gotta tell you, I'm having a hard time taking all this in really quickly. Maybe a draft agreement of what you guys think is best and circulate it, just because I'm still shoulder deep in all this other stuff we were talking about today, so.
Which is why I think the first week in April might be
Yeah.
more realistic.
That would be really helpful.
It gives us maybe 2 weeks to actually draft something, work with Addison a little bit, and then everybody maybe have a week and a half to look at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that Lisa? or-
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
I like,
Yes.
so we're looking at April 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Anthony? one
Yes,
more question?
please.
We need to include something in here about the replacement dollars that Addison's put in, or is that implied that those dollars?
It's implied, but I think we should probably put it in the agreement, yes. We didn't cover it here, but it should be.
The other item, I know we just decided on wait 60 days on the IGA, but it might not hurt. Start reviewing a draft with all the comments that we're gonna be receiving, so we can keep thinking through.
Yeah, we have that ready.
And now maybe wait till the end of the week when some others might.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we gotta keep talking through that, because we might have to pull the trigger sooner rather than later.
All right, one more slide.
Yes, please.
A lot of content here, sorry. All right, so, some of this we've covered, so, I apologize if, I'm repeating myself, but I just wanted to make sure that we hit these big points. But big takeaways basically from, this discussion is general exit agreement language should pertain only to post-contract transition period. That just means that we have to live up to our financial obligation. I'm gonna keep repeating that because that's super, super important. Second item is financial obligation. All members agreed. I've said that several times. And then last thing is separation termination penalties for members. We don't believe that if a member leaves at the end of a contract term with whatever solution we have, they should be penalized. But they should be penalized if they leave prior to, because it puts a financial burden on the rest of the consortium, right? And we believe, we believe that they should pay whatever their share of the contract is through the end of the contract. So I just wanted to highlight those three things, Chair.
Thank you.
That's your last slide?
That's my last
That's it,
slide.
Any other comments on this issue?
I do. Mr. Chair, I apologize. This is so complicated that I really took a lot of notes. I think I want to just get this on the record, if you don't mind me
Please.
indulging everybody here. So, intergovernmental cooperative, is not an easy, thing to take on. And virtually all police departments supported the idea of working on this, some 5 years ago. I think Addison initiated it ironically with the, RFP process. So again, Addison showing that, willing to take the lead and champion, working together. So, I applaud, Addison for that initiative years ago. During this time, we've worked through some significant growing pains, on and off, and I think we have, the correct staffing approach and leadership to manage this service. With Hexagon, update, upcoming, I think that's gonna be a big, improvement. The state reporting has come up a number of times, but I think the state was our own worst enemy in that case. At least that's my interpretation of things. There's been a myriad of other things that have come up, but I think we've been responsive in addressing those. Are there other issues? There's some mentioned even today. That might be the case. I'm not really aware of that. This committee's been meeting for 5 years. I don't think we've had a police chief come and raise any of those concerns. So I think, again, I made this comment Thursday. I think we need to continue to listen, encourage folks to come forward, and let's see if we get issues addressed. Even over the next year, when we're certainly going to be working together, we got to try to make the system work as best it can. In comparing costs, I think you got to keep in mind, and some of this stuff was brought up very well today, the interface costs, the maintenance costs, the replacement costs that are going to be left in the bank if someone's going to leave, the support that the county is providing through this, the member expenses that we're providing on a quarterly basis. Going alone will decrease the service that we're providing. And I think I agree with Dave that we want the best service for the best price, but leaving is going to lose all the advantages of working together. There may be options to consider that are cheaper, but are the more prudent thing to do, in my view, is to review the alternatives as a consortium. I think we said that today. We're stronger as a group, and I worry about the fallout. And I mentioned this earlier about the county, willing to work with us in a number of areas. I can list a bunch. I think this is something that we should keep in mind as we make this point. So I guess why I'm making this statement is members are going to be deciding whether to leave in the next 60 days. And I would urge them not to do that, to slow down, to think through this. We don't want to split the consortium. We're better together. You're going to leave money on the table in the equipment replacement fund that could be used to pay for the next system. And it's going to take 2 to 3 years to do this anyway. And that's the timeline that we laid out in front of you. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Well, just real quick, who can relay that message to the member municipalities?
It's a challenge. I mean, people are all over the place on this thing. I've gotten comments from both sides. They want to pull out there's no reason to pull out. We're in this consortium. So,
I'm going to speak to all the chiefs.
What's that?
Our next chiefs meeting.
Okay. I mean, I was gonna say, maybe we put it out there that we're having another PRMS meeting and they should attend. And make their own comments. Just a thought.
So one of the things that Mark and I do, and Joe too, all of us, Peter, all of us who are from the municipal side, we do talk it up. We have created awareness. That was the impetus for the informational meeting. So we'll continue to do that, all of us. try to get as much information to all the municipalities at the manager level. And the chiefs are plugged in too by Chair Berlin, so we'll keep going on that.
Their next meeting is March 28th.
Okay, that's good timing.
Chair Berlin, I also recommend
Yes.
that, I think that the points that member Franz highlighted make a lot of sense, and to Jeff's point that maybe we should memorialize it in the form of a memo sent by you. Just highlighting
Yes.
all of those key points that we just talked about, right? So
Yeah, that'd be great.
in addition to when you meet with them, that they have it
That's a
all
good idea.
laid out ahead of time, so they can start thinking about those things.
You know, another idea, maybe this is crazy, but should you call Axon and say, we want to see what your product looks like?
We talked about that today, so we're working on that right now.
We want to see how Edison works. We want to work with you. in
We
2
do,
years.
yeah, we reach out to
Would they
Chief
do it at
Self.
the April 3rd meeting?
I'll reach out to you directly.
Right.
Don't split us, let's work together.
We gotta look at
We-
that.
But just a.
I don't think we have a procurement issue until we
We're not
start
making-
the solicitation process.
Yeah, we're not
right?
making any promises,
How it
we just
usually
wanna-
works. You can have conversations.
Informational.
Yeah, it's
You
information.
can do it up to a point other than, I mean, you'd have to talk to your civil people, but there's, I think it's the cost issue.
Down to the money, but like just
Yeah, you'd have to.
conceptual.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my point was to call Axon and say, hey, we really want you to bid on this contract in 2.5 years. You're gonna make it a whole lot harder if you start pulling off
Sure.
little bits rather than let's wait and do it as put your best foot forward in 2 years because we're obligated with the contract.
Not 2 years, actually.
Yeah.
Next
possibly
year.
start next year.
Start next year.
Linda, have you done that? Have you done something similar on ETSB in terms of software negotiations?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is how we did the last one. I mean, this was a big heavy lift. It started in 2016 and we didn't deploy until 2019. So, it would be somewhat easier now because you have everybody on one system in terms of our, theory, except for you, sorry, and Marley, but on one system. So you've already standardized. That was what took so long the first time. So in theory, because you've got a basis in a system, the lift could go somewhat more quickly. And on the CAD side, you only have 2 directors, so. But it does take, I guess my question is Axon looking at individual use? Or, one of the differences here is this is one unified system from initiation of incident to disposition of case. If Axon is doing individual deployment by agency, that's a different type of deployment too. So it could go more quickly, right? So it depends on how you're trying to deploy and configure, because then the configuration is agency to agency to agency, and then the integrations are one-off too. So and then the project management is by agency. So it depends on how they're going to do it. Then it's not really consortium either. Then there's no master index file and shared information on the rest, and then we're back to where we were in previous multiple systems. It would be the same product, but I don't know how they're thinking. I don't know so, or what they're planning.
Have that conversation.
I can't speak on what they're doing on that.
Because you're a manager.
Yeah. I don't miss those days.
You know this much about it, so.
That's right. How much is
I'll miss
it
them.
and how, right? How did you budget for it beforehand?
Pretty much.
All right. New business? Before we adjourn, want to discuss?
April 3rd at 2 p.m.
All right, do we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good discussion.
So thanks, everyone, be next week. We are needy. We are. Yes.
Very good, as always.